What if I told you that the woman you're trying to figure out isn't actually a puzzle to be solved? What if I told you that all your efforts to analyze her, to find her weaknesses, to strategize, are really just you looking in a mirror, trying to figure out yourself? What if the woman you're interacting with, whether in love or frustration or conflict, is actually just a mirror that doesn't reflect her? It reflects all of your lost pieces, your unhealed wounds, and the hidden power you've never dared to claim as your own. Today, we are not looking for someone else's weaknesses. We are starting a far more important journey. We are going to explore the architecture of our own soul through the lens of our relationships. Welcome to a deeper understanding, not of them, but of you. Part 1. The illusion of the bottomless mirror. We often hear about how women, especially attractive women, live in a prison of validation, that they crave attention and external confirmation. That's a common observation. But it's only half the truth, and it's the less important half. The deeper truth is, we all live by reflection. The sociologist Charles Cooley called this the looking glass self. We don't know who we are until we see ourselves through the eyes of another. And here is the key. When a man looks at a woman and sees only her need for validation, he often fails to realize he is doing the exact same thing. He is seeking his own validation in her eyes. He wants her to see him as strong, as a protector, as intelligent, as desired. He is craving the mirror too. We blame in others what we deny in ourselves. The metaphor I want you to hold in your mind is of a room full of mirrors, but none of them are clear. Some are fogged, some are distorted. Some make you look taller, others make you look small. We walk into relationships holding out our own distorted mirror to the other person, and they do the same. And we call this exchange of distorted images love. Modern psychology calls this codependency. I need you to confirm that I'm okay, and you need me to confirm that you're okay. I remember a time in my life when I was in a relationship where I constantly felt I had to prove my worth. I worked harder, tried to be funnier, tried to be more successful. I thought I was doing it for her, to make her proud. But years later I realized I was doing it for me. I was using her as a mirror to prove to my own shadow that I was enough. The hunger for validation isn't her weakness. It's the human condition. It's the soul's first call, searching for itself. The first reflective question for you is this. When you seek her approval or admiration, what are you really asking her to confirm about you? Be honest. Are you asking her to tell you that you're smart, that you're strong, that you're worthy, or simply that you are enough? When we realize we are both just holding mirrors, the game changes. It's no longer about who is weaker. It becomes about how we can both put the mirrors down and finally begin to see each other. But before we can do that, we have to address another structure we build together, one that is both beautiful and dangerous. The pedestal. Part 2. The shadow of the pedestal. We don't just seek reflection. We build monuments. When we become infatuated with a woman, we tend to put her on a pedestal. We carve this perfect marble statue. We admire the statue's beauty, its grace, its intelligence. We worship it. We say that being put on a pedestal is her weakness because it creates fragility, that she's terrified of not living up to that idealized image. And that's true. But again, we're looking in the wrong direction. The real question isn't, why is she fragile on the pedestal? The real question is, why did we build the pedestal in the first place? The answer, if we're brave enough to face it, is that we build her pedestal to hide our own fragile parts. It's a psychological defense mechanism. We idealize someone else so we don't have to deal with the complexity and the messiness of a real relationship. It is so much easier to love a statue than to love a human being. A statue doesn't have bad days. A statue doesn't have irrational fears. A statue doesn't challenge your deepest beliefs. A statue just stands there and is perfect, allowing you to feel perfect by association. The great Stoic philosopher, Marcus Aurelius, had a practice. He would look at a lavish meal and tell himself, "This is the dead body of a fish. This is the dead body of a bird." He looked at fine wine and said, This is just fermented grape juice. He did this not to be cynical, but to practice seeing things as they truly are. Without the stories and idealizations our minds add, we need to do the same in our relationships. We need the courage to say, this is a human being who, just like me, has scars, has doubts, has ordinary days. The shadow of the pedestal is our own fear of normalcy, our fear of true intimacy, because true intimacy requires us to step off our own pedestal and meet the other person on the messy, uncertain, level ground. When you put a woman on a pedestal, you are telling her, I don't want to see the real you. I only want to see the illusion I've created. Because the real you and the real me are too terrifying to face. Second reflective question. What parts of her reality, her flaws, her fears, her ordinariness, are you intentionally ignoring? What are you afraid will shatter if you acknowledge them? Her image or your own? This pedestal isn't just built from stone. It's paid for with a currency that we all trade in, every single day. A currency we believe is real until it vanishes. Part 3. The currency of impermanence. We talk about how an attractive woman's value is tied to her appearance, that her entire self-worth is built on something inherently temporary, and this creates a catastrophic vulnerability. That's true. But once again, we're pointing the finger and forgetting to look at ourselves. We are all betting our self-worth on some form of impermanent currency. For some, it's looks. For others, it's physical strength. For you, maybe it's your intelligence, your status, your job title, the number in your bank account. Think about this deeply. Eastern philosophy, particularly Buddhism, teaches us about anicca, or impermanence. Everything changes. Everything passes. Beauty fades. Strength declines. Intellect becomes outdated. Careers end. A woman building her self-worth on beauty is no more dangerous than a man building his entire self-worth on his career. When that job is gone, when his body ages, when he's no longer the strongest guy in the room, he faces the exact same existential crisis. Who is he without his currency? I have a friend who was a phenomenal athlete in college. His entire life was defined by his strength and athletic ability. That was his currency. In his 30s, he suffered a severe injury and could never play the same way again. I watched him crumble. He had no idea who he was. He lost his entire sense of self-worth because he had invested it all in something impermanent. When we criticize others for clinging to their impermanent currency, it's often because we are terrified of the fragility of our own. We are drawn to beauty. Yes, because biologically it signals health and youth. But psychologically, we are also obsessed with it because its fading reminds us of the one truth we don't want to face, that everything we're clinging to, including our own bodies, is temporary. Conditional self-worth isn't a woman's problem. It's a human problem. The challenge isn't how she can find deeper value. The challenge is how all of us can find a foundation for our worth that can't be washed away by time. Third reflective question for you. What is your primary currency? What are you using to price your own value every day? Your intellect, your career, your strength, your ability to provide? What happens to your sense of self if that currency loses all its value tomorrow? We've looked at the mirror, the pedestal, and the currency, but these don't operate in a vacuum. They are part of a single law, a law of relational physics that governs all our interactions. Part 4. The Law of Relational Echo. This is a principle I call the law of relational echo. It's very simple. The law states, the qualities that either fascinate you the most or frustrate you the most in your partner are often the echoes of the most rejected or unacknowledged parts of yourself. Imagine, you're standing at the edge of a canyon and you shout. The canyon doesn't create the sound. It simply returns what you put into it. Your relationships are the same. They are resonance chambers. The great psychologist Carl Jung called this shadow projection. The shadow is all the parts of ourselves we don't like, don't accept, or are afraid of. We hide them away even from ourselves. And because we can't see them in ourselves, we see them very clearly in other people. When you see someone as too needy for attention, the mirror, it might be an echo of the part of you that also craves to be seen, but is too afraid to admit. When you see someone as arrogant or on a pedestal, it might be an echo of the part of you that feels small and insecure. When you see someone as shallow and materialistic, the currency, it might be an echo of the part of you that's worried you have no value beyond your own external achievements. This also works for the positive. When you are completely mesmerized by someone's kindness, it may be the echo of your own unexpressed kindness. When you admire someone's freedom, it may be the echo of the part of your soul that is begging to be liberated. This story isn't about him and her. It's about you and your shadow. A relationship is not a place to find your missing half. A relationship is a place to find the missing parts of yourself through your interaction with another. The other person is not the answer. The other person is the question. They are the most honest mirror, the clearest echo, showing you exactly who you are. Most conflict doesn't happen because the other person did something wrong. It happens because they accidentally bumped into one of our unhealed wounds, one of our rejected shadows. And instead of turning inward to heal, we turn outward to attack the echo. Fourth reflective question. Think about the last thing that made you truly angry or frustrated with your partner. A specific trait. Now, take a deep breath and be honest. Where does that exact same pattern, even just a little bit, exist inside of you? Understanding this law is one thing. But to break its spell, we need more than intellect. We need a specific kind of courage. Part 5. The courage to see beyond the archetype. We live in a world of archetypes. The attractive woman, the successful man, the stern father, the nurturing wife. We label everything so our brains can process the world. The problem is, we start to love and hate the labels instead of the human beings behind them. Think about it like going to a museum and looking at a beautiful painting. You analyze the brushstrokes, the colors, the context. You admire the painting, but you never meet the painter. You don't know the painter's pain or hopes or what they had for breakfast. You're only interacting with the work. In relationships, we often do the same thing. We interact with our idea of a person, not the person themselves. We love the idea of a beautiful woman, not the real human being who struggles with insecurity behind that beauty. Zen philosophy has a concept called shoshin, or beginner's mind. It's the ability to see things as if it's the first time you've ever seen them, without the baggage of the past, without the preconceived notions or labels you've attached. The courage to see means practicing beginner's mind with your partner. To look at her today as if you've never met her before, without the story of she always or she never, because when we label someone, we freeze them in the past. We don't give them room to change, to grow, to surprise us. And we freeze ourselves too. Psychology calls this de-objectification. It's the conscious practice of seeing a person as a subject with their own rich, complex inner world, and not as an object in your story who is there to play a role, like lover, supporter, or adversary. When you can look at your wife, your girlfriend, or even a stranger and see the subject looking back at you, with hopes and fears just as complex as your own, magic happens. Judgment dissolves. Real connection begins. But this takes courage, because it means you have to let go of your own label too. You no longer get to be the strong one or the smart one. You just get to be a human, present with another human. Fifth, reflective question. If you had to describe your partner without using any of the labels you usually use, e.g., beautiful, difficult, anxious, strong, who would you be describing? What do you actually see? This projection, this labeling, it doesn't start with our partners. It starts much, much earlier. Part 6. The Father's Gaze, Healing the Root of the Projection. This is one of the most important and vulnerable parts of the journey. All of these mirrors, pedestals, and echoes we experience as adults, they are all replays of our first and most powerful dynamics. Attachment theory in psychology states that the way we bonded with our parents or primary caregivers creates a blueprint, a template for all of our future relationships. Imagine a little boy. He looks up to his father, who he sees as the model of strength and knowing. The boy craves one look from that father, a look that says, "You are enough. I am proud of you." For many of us, that look never fully came. Maybe our father was absent, physically or emotionally. Maybe he was harsh and critical. Maybe he was just struggling with his own demons. So that little boy grows up with a father wound, a hole inside, a craving for validation, for recognition of his manhood. And what does that boy do when he becomes a man? Unconsciously, he takes that hole into his romantic relationships. He might try to become the father he never had. Hyper-strong, stoic, never showing emotion. He puts himself on a pedestal of invulnerability, or he seeks from his partner the approval he never got from his father. He projects the father figure onto her, desperate for her to fill that void. He wants her to give him the look his father never did. Of course, this is an impossible task. She is not your father. She cannot heal that wound for you. I can share from my own experience. My father was a good man, but he was from a generation that believed emotion was weakness. Love was shown through action, through providing, but never through words or validation. I grew up always feeling like I had to do something to be worthy. And for years, I carried that into my relationships. I became a doer. I tried to fix my partner's problems. I tried to provide solutions. I thought it was love. But really, it was me as a little boy, desperately trying to finally hear my dad say, "Good job, son." It was only when I faced that wound myself and gave myself that validation that I could stop demanding it from my partner. Only then could I love her for who she was, not for the role I needed her to play. Sixth reflective question. What validation did you crave as a child, from your father or mother, that you are now unconsciously asking your partner to give you? This journey, from the mirror, past the pedestal's shadow, trading in impermanent currency, hearing our own echo, and finally, back to our childhood wound, leads us to one final destination, the only place where real healing can happen. Part 7, the altar of the authentic self. We've traveled a long way. We started by trying to understand women as a strategy, and we've ended up here, realizing this entire journey was never about her. It was always about you. The ultimate goal of a conscious relationship is not to find the perfect partner. The ultimate goal is to become an authentic individual. A relationship is a crucible. It is a refining fire designed to burn away everything that is not you. It burns away the pretense, the ego, the defense mechanisms, and the old stories you tell yourself. What's left after that fire is your authentic self. For most of our lives, we live as actors. We play the role of the good son, the strong man, the perfect lover, the successful husband. We wear these masks for so long, we forget our real face underneath, and then we enter an intimate relationship. And there is no other place on earth where the mask is so fiercely challenged. Your partner, just by being themselves, will unconsciously poke and prod at all the edges of your mask until it cracks. This is why relationships are so hard. And it's also why they are the single greatest gift for our growth. The altar of the authentic self isn't a place. It's a state of being. It's the moment you stop seeking validation from the outside because you have found it on the inside. It's the moment you stop putting others on a pedestal because you've learned to stand on your own 2 feet. It's the moment you can love another person as they truly are because you have finally accepted who you truly are. The journey from trying to analyze others to understanding yourself is the journey from the head to the heart. It is the journey from strategy to authenticity. The final reflective question: who would you be? What would you do? And how would you live? If you no longer needed anyone else's approval to feel whole, conclusion, and your practice. Today, we went from seeing women as a puzzle to solve, to seeing them as a mirror. And finally, we saw the man in that mirror. We explored the illusion of the bottomless mirror, realizing our shared hunger for validation. We stood in the shadow of the pedestal, understanding we idealize others to hide from ourselves. We examined the currency of impermanence, seeing how we all cling to temporary values. We learned the law of relational echo, that what we see in others is a reflection of ourselves. We talked about the courage to see beyond archetypes. We touched the root of projection from the Father's gaze. And finally, we arrived at the altar of the authentic self. This knowledge is useless if it just stays in your head. It has to be lived. So I want to leave you with a practice. I call it the echo meditation, tonight, or whenever you have 5 quiet minutes. Sit down. Close your eyes. Think of one person in your life with whom you are currently in conflict or feeling friction. It could be your partner, your boss, a family member. Identify one specific emotion that person brings up in you. Anger, frustration, insecurity, feeling unseen? Instead of trying to push that feeling away or analyze it, just observe it in your body. What does it feel like? Where is it? Now, gently ask that feeling, what part of me are you trying to protect? Or, when is the first time I remember feeling this way? Don't try to answer with your mind. Just ask the question and listen. The answer may not come right away. But you have started the dialogue. You have begun to turn the echo into understanding. This isn't just about relationships. This is about your life. The real work isn't to change her. The real work is to know yourself. If this conversation meant something to you, don't just like it. Carry it with you, practice it, and join this community by subscribing, where we do this deep work together, because the journey of knowing yourself is the greatest journey a man can ever take.